Far as the evolution of whether it's trust law or probate law, I mean, our hope is that every time you enter one of these gray areas where the law is not clear, that you can achieve some clarity, and if everything goes the right way, you get a decision from the court that essentially helps to create law or clarify law in that particular area. I think the more that happens, the better off the entire the practice area is, because that gives each of us and clients secondarily more guidance about how to proceed. The problem is, and it really isn't a problem, it's just a practical reality. So many cases settle these days, and that's the best result. So that's just not a negative thing. But if a case settles, it does not in any way add to the clarity or the clarification of whatever issues that you were facing in that particular case. So the uncertainty continues going forward. I do see, in my experience, and I'd be interested to see if the folks who do this on the transactional side, whether it's drafting trusts or advising trustees, or I see the estate planning and the tax planning becoming not more sophisticated per se, but more people taking advantage of that. So I think the volume of trusts, for example, trust instruments, and therefore people performing as trustee or beneficiaries of trusts, et cetera, I think that's increasing, at least in my experience. Estate plans become more sophisticated as society becomes more wealthy, overall. And I think that probate litigation. One of the things that surprised me a little bit in some respects was how fierce probate litigation can become. And it shouldn't surprise me or anybody because, like closely held family companies that I've represented, or shareholders of family companies or closely held companies, when only a few folks involved, and especially if it's family members, things can get pretty hotly contested. And you see that in probate, because whether it's siblings, for example, have differences of opinion about what the will says, or whether the parent or the parents whose wills are at issue were competent when they decided to give more, for example, in a significant will to one sibling as opposed to the other. The history of that oftentimes becomes a large part of that case. So the investigation into the history, to the extent that's relevant to the case, and the determination of whether a parent, properly or improperly treated one sibling different than another, for example, all those kinds of things. And it isn't just financial assets. That's where it crosses over into the corporate side. One I'm dealing with right now, a huge part of the probate dispute that we're involved in after these deaths is the disposition of the deceased shareholders' shares in the still surviving corporations. And there are siblings remaining who are the existing or remaining shareholders. And the disposition, though, of the shares of other family members who are now deceased may have a significant impact on who controls the company, who has the greater financial interest, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a good example of where the corporate litigation or the business litigation line crosses over into probate. And again, to your question of trends, I'm seeing that more and more, where more sophisticated estate plans aren't just disposing of the house and the car and those kinds of personal items. When you start dealing with shares in corporations and those kinds of interests, it crosses over from just a probate issue. Now it's a corporate law issue. Then it's a litigation issue. And again, part of what has helped fire my interest or fuel my interest in this has been the tremendous depth of talent of the other lawyers at Pierce Atwood, and the coverage capacity that these practice areas and these individuals in the practice areas can provide. This case I just referenced that I have involving all these different areas of law, there are a lot of firms, good-sized firms that I'm aware of in this market could not fully staff these cases just because they don't have, the folks who have that particular expertise. So that has been a big part of where my interest has come from, is just take advantage of the talent you have. And because that's such a great level of talent here, again, it's kind of a no-brainer for me, and it's really exciting. So that part of it is just a bonus.